Welcome to Performance Plus, reporting to the webinar put on by Demonstrated Success. I'm Ann Mordecai, and Heather Jenkins is also here.
Hello.
Hi. Now you can go to the next page. Who we are, you may know, you probably heard of us by now, because this year through the pandemic, we've been on tons and tons and tons of webinars and sending you a million emails. But we are a K-12 educational consulting company based in Portsmouth, and we have decades of educational experience. We wrote centuries at first, but that didn't quite work. We focus on ELA and math and culture and climate and SEL and PLC training and a lot of looking at data. And I just said about the remote learning, we've been here all year with doing lots of webinars. Here, Heather will be doing the webinar, and I'll be here answering questions if you have them, or I'm not going to answer them. I will see them and give them to Heather. And if you want to learn more about us, when we send you this PowerPoint, you can read about it because it's fascinating. Logistics. So this is the second reporting webinar in our Performance Plus subscriber series, and we're very happy you're here. Thank you to all teachers and principals and administrators and everybody who has put so much effort into weird effort in this year, and stressful, and just this whole year's been crazy. And thank you for taking care of our children. During the webinar, everyone will be muted. If you have questions, could you please put them in the question and answer section of the toolbars down at the, for us, it's on the bottom. I think it would be for you too, but I'm not sure. If you put it in the chat, I may miss it, but I might find it. But if you can find the question and answers, that would be great. If you put in a question, I'll stop Heather at a good point and we can ask her the question. If there's something you want to ask in person at the end, just hang on and we'll unmute you at the end. You can raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Tomorrow, you'll get an email with a link to the certificate for professional development, a link to the recording of this webinar, and any other documents that we talk about today.
All right. So this is where I take over. Again, I'm Heather Jenkins. I am going to turn my camera off so that it's not too distracting for me here. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so this is my gentle reminder. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you just keep moving. That's sort of the motto, I feel like, of this year in general, is we just got to keep moving and keep going. So here we are. We're going to be talking about Performance Plus reports. So to get right in, these are our goals for today. We're going to answer the following questions. We're going to learn a little bit about the P+ reporting filters. We're going to learn how to run a few reports in Performance Plus. And a lot of what we're looking at today is going to revolve around the SAS assessments and allow us to take a peek at those to help inform our instruction. So we'll get right to it. General information about P+ reports. To get into Performance Plus, I think you probably all know this because you're doing the level 2 reporting. Again, you go into your single sign-on login. You log in with your username and password. If you forget what it is, there's all the information over here for getting your passwords figured out, or if your account is locked. You do have to change your passwords every once in a while, so sometimes that becomes an issue. Once you're in, you are going to choose Performance Plus. If you, for some reason, don't see this picture with Performance Plus, you need to talk to your administrator and just make sure that you're in the system. And then once you get there, you're going to have this home page here, and you're going to be clicking on reports here. I just wanted to go over this general information. You have your step 1, which is you're going to choose your report type. Step 2, you're going to filter your data. Step 3 is looking at some options or maybe a preferred format. Some reports have this, some reports don't, but we'll talk about that. And then we run the reports. Some general information about the types of reports that are in Performance Plus. Once you click on reports, you'll get this little drop down. And so you have performance tracker reports and you have assessment builder reports. So just a little bit of information about those. For the performance tracker reports or the proficiency and standards reports, here's the options that you have. I'm not going to take too much time about going over each one of these. Today, we're going to be looking at the pie chart, the comparative report with proficiency levels, and the assessment scores. So those are the three that we'll be going over as performance tracker reports. And then assessment builder reports or item level reports. Here are all the options that you have for those. And for today, we're going to look at the item analysis by students and item analysis by question. So creating reports in PerformancePLUS. The big thing that we are going to be talking about here are the filters that you are going to be able to use. Now the filters, there's a lot of different options, and what ends up happening is when you're running reports and you use too many of the filters, it tends to basically limit your criteria so much that the report doesn't run the way you want. But there are a lot of options, so I just wanted to go through them really quickly. So when you click on filters, this drop-down menu will come up, and I'm just going to go through each one of these filters really quickly. So again, you can use any of the filters in conjunction with one another, but you just have to be a little bit careful. You don't need them all. So the first one was assessments and sections. This is the one that you will most likely use the most frequently, because this is where you're choosing the specific assessment that you want to show on a report. So you're able to look at your district will show up, and then you'll be able to choose a specific year or years, specific subjects, grade ranges, these type of assessments. So the series are going to have your assessments listed. And so you're able to choose any of the criteria on here to run it. The next one, you can sort by school building. So within your district, if you have a specific school that you want to look at, you will be able to choose just a specific school if you want to see a specific school. Okay. And then the next one is you can see your teachers and classes. So you can filter out the data and just look at specific teachers to be able to see on the assessments, or if you have a specific grade range you want to look at, or if there's a specific class name. So any of this criteria you can use. There's a couple of different student groups that you can use for reporting filters. So you can filter the select student groups here. These are groups that the information in there may end up like here, if you're the two-year college two-year, that tends to be once you're in that particular group, you're in that group. For the dynamic student groups, those are groups that may change over time. So you can always sort by these different groups. And then there's also a student demographic area that you would be able to filter by a specific student demographic here. And the last one here is the student list. And so you can choose a specific year and grade level or a specific student name if you wanted to. The last one here, this would be, you would be typically not using this particular, the student list, because you'll be choosing most likely in your assessment criteria or in your school which grade levels you want to see, but it is an option. And then this filter area allows you to clear all the filters that you've selected. A lot of times if you run a report and you get an error saying that nothing is showing up and you can't figure out why, sometimes you just need to go to that filters and clear all so that you're able to kind of restart and check out your assessments again. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to go live into PerformancePLUS. So I'm going to go into my Chrome here. And so
Heather,
Yep.
We don't have any questions, but I just want to interrupt and say, if you have questions as she goes along, please enter them into the question and answer section, and I will flag Heather down and stop her and get her to answer. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks. All right, so I'm logged into Performance Plus now, and I'm on my home page. So we're going to be going into this particular area here, which is reports. And just to kind of explain a little bit about what you see on this page is you have all of your reports up at the top here. These are called push reports. So these are reports that have been pushed to you via our P+ admin team. So a lot of times, like we have they pushed the interim specific reports to you, or they've pushed out the SAS reports in the past, just in a general format that's easy for you to be able to just kind of click on, and it preloads. And then there are some times where your district has asked for us to push a specific report to them. So anything that's been pushed to you will show up at the top. We're not really working with those today. We're more going to be working on reports that we are going to run ourselves. So those are down on the bottom here. I've been kind of running quite a few reports. Normally you'll see like report 1 here, and then here's those steps that we talked about for running reports. So today I wanted to take a look at some of the reports that would be helpful for you when it comes to the New Hampshire SAS assessments. So the first report I'm going to run is going to be a report to see what some of the interim data looks like and take a peek at that. So right now, the first thing I'm going to do is for step 1 here, I'm going to choose my report type. And the particular report that I want to run right now is a performance tracker report. And it is going to be the assessment scores report. So right here. So now I have the report chosen, and now I need to figure out which criteria I want to be able to use. So now I'm going to go to step 2, which is filters. And then here's all of my sections that I can choose. So now I want to go to the assessments and sections area, and I'm actually going to make my screen just a little bit bigger, just so that you can see a little bit better. So now I'm logged in as a state administrator. Most likely you'll just see your district here. I do have a specific district chosen in my school buildings, but just so that we can see not the whole state. This is also a de-identified database, so you'll see a lot of your school or John Smith, and so obviously you would see a little bit differently in your own. So now I do want to keep my year to 2021 because I am looking at the interim data here. So if I look at subject, I am going to choose the math interim. So I'm going to choose mathematics, and I have 6th grade to 6th grade. Again, you could choose any grade level that you would like. Just remember, when we're thinking interims, I chose the grade range here of 6th grade. This would be showing my 7th grade students. So if I wanted to show my actual 6th grade students, I'm going to change this to 5th grade here because the interims they took for the year prior. Every other one, it makes sense. For some, the interims, it's just a little bit tricky. Now, right now, if if it's showing my assessments, it's showing everything that is possible for an assessment that is a sort of 5th grade assessment for this particular year. If I knew, and I had a lot of assessments in here, and I know that I just want to be able to choose the New Hampshire SAS interim, I can click that here and it will show, and click show assessments, and it just narrows it down a little bit. So if you feel like your list is really big, or you have put in a larger date range and you want to see what the assessments are over a longer date range, you can do that and then choose your series here. So I do want to choose my New Hampshire SAS interim here. And then what I'm going to do is, again, I could go down here and I could choose, I have chosen for my school buildings now, I've chosen my district and I have all of my school buildings chosen. So if you wanted to choose a specific building in your district to show, you could do that with using the school buildings there. So I've already chosen those. So now I'm going to run my report. And so this is what I have here. When I've run this report, what I'm realizing is a lot of times when we run our reports in Performance Plus, we run it and then we kind of see what's showing up, and then we can go back and choose specific information to make the report look a little bit more what we want it to look like. So an example here is for the interims, the data that is in here is by domain. You can see, and then for each cluster level, I don't have any scores in here. So I really don't actually want to see that on this report. I would prefer to just see where there are scores. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then also some of this, I would just like to see all the information here in my headings. So I'll show you how to do that too. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of all of this empty data here. So I'm going to go back to my filters and I'm looking at the specific assessment that I have here. And to be able to choose the sections, I'm going to click on this plus symbol here. And then I'm able to choose whatever I want to show for the data. So right now I know I want to see the overall score. And then I know in here that all of my clusters are empty. So I'm just going to pick my headings here, my domain headings. And then all I do again now is I chosen what I wanted and I'm going to run the report again. And now I have just all the information with my overall score and this. I really, again, want to see the whole heading. So this is where the options become really helpful for some of the reports that you're going to be running. So when I click on options, it's these are the options that I have for this specific report. So what I'm showing you right now is not necessarily available for every report. But for the assessment scores report, I'm able to show, right now it's showing the student full name. So if I didn't want to show student names, I could say, don't show student name, but I can keep it shows full student. It doesn't say right now that it's showing the actual building. So I could say, show the building name if I wanted to. So there's options there. Where it says grade, it says don't show current grade. If I did, we would know that this was my current students that are in 6th grade now, even though we're looking at a 5th grade interim. Here's where this gets a little bit tricky, especially when we're talking about students that are in middle school, is right now it says don't show students or classes. If I click show teachers, what's going to happen, you won't be able to kind of see it as well on the database, the de-identified database. But what will happen if I say show teachers is that it's going to show that student multiple times depending on the teachers that they have. So even it's not just middle school, it can be elementary school too. If they have more than one teacher, they start to show duplicates. So you just want to be a little bit careful when you say show teachers. If I were to click show teachers here, I would probably also use the filter over here. And I would choose my specific teachers that I would want to show on this report. And then if there were 2 teachers that I was having it show up for, then it would just show for those 2 teachers rather than for every single section that they have of teachers. So if that ever happens and you have hit show teachers here, that's why they're duplicating so many times. So I'm just going to say don't show teachers or classes. You have the ability to show their race or their gender. This is really I don't get too much into here, I have to be honest with you. When we were talking about, we just have one assessment shown, so we're going to kind of skip over this here. And then the big area that I want to show you here is where the column headers are. I want to say show all. And same thing with show all here. And then when I run this, it will give me all of the information that's in that particular column. I will say when you're looking at the interim data, this little show scoring notes isn't as helpful, but when you're looking at the New Hampshire SAS summative data, that will tell you how many points out of, if there were 6 questions and they got 3 points out of 6, it would show you 3 of 6. So this show scoring notes can be really helpful when you're looking at New Hampshire SAS summative data. The interim data doesn't really have it. So I'm going to run my report here. And now you can see I've got my whole column here that I can read. And so it's a little bit more helpful for me to be able to know what it is. And now I've got where all of my scores are showing up and my overall score here. If I wanted to sort by overall score, who scored the highest or the lowest, make sure you're not sorting by level, because it will just sort the 4 levels for the overall. But when I'm sorting by score, it actually will show me and put it in order in each section. So make sure you're using score here. So that now if I wanted to go highest to lowest, I would see this is my highest scoring student, where if I had just selected by level, it would just sort of mishmash in the above proficient. So as I scroll down here, if I'm looking, this is where you're able to kind of take a peek at, okay, so students' overall score is here. Now remember, on the interims, there are 4 levels for an overall score. There's above proficient, on or above, at or approaching, or below proficient for overall. And then in each one of these domains, there were only 3 levels. So you've got on or above, at or approaching, or below. So this is why you're not seeing any blue over here. What would be good to look at as we scroll down are kids that maybe were scoring proficient, but were pretty low in a specific area. So you can take a look at that and see how students are looking there. And so you can just kind of scroll through the data and figure out where students may have done well or not as well. So the assessment scores report right now, I ran for the interims, and it's giving me information about the interims at the beginning of this year and all of that. But what I also might want to be able to do with this is choose other reports, other assessments to be able to go with this. But before I do that, because I have this criteria already selected, I want to show you what this also looks like with the proficiency pie chart. So I've got my assessment scores here, and now I can go over here to my reports. And I'm going to choose the same thing. I have my interims, my 6th graders interims. And now if I look at this proficiency pie chart here, and I run the report, it just is the data in a little bit of a different way here. So now I can see here is my interim, here's my overall score. So there's going to be a pie chart for every section that I have, was a column on the other one. So for every section I've selected. Now, in here, I really like this particular report. One, because it kind of shows you the number of students that were assessed. It also shows you how many students scored a specific level. But if you go down, it's a good visual here too, to say, okay, so now I'm looking, this is measurement data in geometry. This is how many of my kids are on or above or at or approaching. I have quite a few low students there. And you can keep going down and figure out, okay, whoa, okay, so this one, kids did a little bit better on. There's not a ton of on or below, but there's a few less low. But if I want to go through and look at any of the students, so this is quite a few students for measurement data in geometry, I can click on this and it shows me all of the students that were low on that particular portion of the report. So it's kind of nice that you can drill down into there and then you can get back here. It'll just run my report again and I can get back and see anything else. So you can kind of go back and forth and see where students, who's falling into which particular category. So you can drill down in there. So again, same information, just in a little bit different way. Any questions so far, Anne? Because I'm going to move on back to my assessment scores and all of that report. But I'm going to
no questions yet, but if people have reports they want to see or they've tried and haven't been able to get, we may be able to show them here. So you can ask.
Okay. All right. So now that I have, if I'm thinking, if I'm a teacher and I have looked at my interim results, that's all well and good, but maybe I want to see how those students scored on their New Hampshire SAS summative in prior years to see how it compares to how they scored on the interims. So I'm going to go back into reports and I am going to choose my assessment scores report. And then I'm going to go back into my filters and I'm going to look at the assessments and sections. And now what I want to do is right now, the only report that I have chosen is my interim. So now I want to choose my summative reports or the summative assessments for the years for these same students in prior years. So it's a little bit tricky to do the math, but these students right now in 6th grade, the last time they took this particular summative was in 2018-19. And now they're not in 6th grade, but they're going to be, I'm going to choose 4th grade because our 6th grade students were in 4th grade that year. Again, I had 5th grade because it was the interim before. So now I go to New Hampshire SAS and I can say show assessments. And so for math, I have the New Hampshire SAS 4th grade assessment for 2018-19. So I'm going to choose that one. And then I also want to choose the same assessment for grade 3 in 2017-18. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I close this here, I'm going to actually take these off because I'm just going to look at overall scores right now. So I'm looking at, just to kind of recap what I'm doing here, I'm looking at the interim from this year for our 6th graders. I am looking at the New Hampshire SAS summative that these 6th graders took in 4th grade and in 3rd grade. And I just want to see how they compare. So on here, what I want to make sure of is if I click run this report right now, every single one of these sections on the New Hampshire SAS summative is going to come up, which normally I would just show you and then say, okay, let's take a look at our criteria. But earlier it did not do well when I tried to run this report with so much information. So I am actually going to just choose overall scaled score for all of them. And then I'm going to run the report. Okay, so now this is what we have here. Again, it looks a little bit funny because everybody's a John Smith here. But you can see if I look here and I say in third grade, let's sort by the student who scored the highest to the lowest in third grade. So now here's my top. This is my third grade. Again, these are the exact same students, and it's 3 years worth of data for them. And we chose interim for this year because they haven't taken the SAS yet for the summatives at the end of the year. So here's what you can start looking at is, okay, so these are some students that didn't take the interims this year. That's fine. These students, not a problem at all. They're continuing to be level 4. Some of these students went from third grade to fourth grade, this particular student here, and was above and then was approaching proficient and stayed there. But as we scroll down, this is where you start to say, okay, this particular student was a level 4. Then they went down to a level 3, and now they're below proficient. I know it's been quite a while, and I know that the circumstances with the interims are a little bit tricky, but this is something that you could look at to say, how in general are our students doing compared to how they did historically on the summatives? So it's just really interesting information to have. Obviously, we love these kids that are just continuing to thrive, but the kids that are going from above to proficient to below, we sort of wonder what might be happening there. So it's just a really good way to be able to look at this and figure out where your students are. So I'm just going to pause there and see if there's any questions at all.
Nope, no questions. Still no questions.
Okay. So now, if we are going to take a look at this, we can look at, right now, this was the assessment scores. Let me go back up here. So we had assessment scores chosen. So now I could also take a look at the comparative report by achievement levels. Is that going to work, Anne, with the summatives in there too?
There'll be a lot of information. So just run it. And this is what I just run it and see what I get. And then if it's not close, I change everything.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect.
So, so we can take a look at this here. This is just the information shown in a little bit different way. And I feel like this is a really great snapshot. A lot of times when you're comparing specific reports over time, so you can see this is how many students were above proficient or above, and then this is proficient, and then here we have our partially proficient and our substantially below proficient. This was in third grade. And so you can see this little area where the blue and the green, we like blue and green, they're about the same size here, roughly a few more kind of going into this proficient level. But then when we look at the interims, we see that that's changed pretty dramatically. And again, we're looking at really different times right now. So you can kind of see what that is, but it's really just good information to have. And all right, so that's just some general information about how to look at some of your historical summative data and your interim data. So at this point, unless there's any questions, I am going to go into a little bit of a different report. and show you one of the reports that is one of our, not performance tracker reports, but our assessment builder reports.
Heather, someone
And
asking if you can
show you
explain.
sort of what those reports look like a little bit. It will not be with the same data. It won't be the interim or SAS data. So we'll go there.
Heather,
Yeah.
can you explain again the difference between the performance tracker and the assessment builder? Someone wants to know.
Yes. So the performance tracker reports, and you can probably explain this a little bit better, but the performance tracker reports do not go down like to the individual question level and say how students did on individual questions. The assessment builder reports are the ones that do that. And tend to have like your standards attached to them, not always, but has your standards attached to them. And then the performance tracker reports are more of an overall, they how students do in a specific area of learning. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's the proficiency. You can see on the performance tracker, which who knows why they call it that, the proficiency reports and standards reports. And then on the assessment builder, they shouldn't have called it that. They should have called it item level reports, because then you can see the items on a test that how students answered them.
Right.
And
so yeah, this is a perfect example here with the New Hampshire SAS Summative and Interims. You can't see how students scored on individual items. You can only see down to like the cluster level. So they might have had 3 or 4 questions in a specific set of standards, where the reports on a assessment builder report would be something that you would have every single question and how they answered on those questions.
yeah,
So
and it's some of these it says that under the assessment builder where it's item level, you really don't get item level on all of them, but you don't get item level on any of the performance tracker. And we have another question. Somebody was wondering about the standards report. Can you show us a standards report?
On this one here?
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if I were to run, I guess it would be the standards bar chart. I'm not going to be able to use all of these reports in there. I believe I can only put one report in there. So I'm going to take off the summatives, and I can run that standards report. Yes. So it's not really by standard. This is the sort of the issue that we run into.
Yeah, the standards reports I have found not to be very useful, because the assessment has to be set up so that it tells you what standards each section is or each question is, and not all of them are set up that way. So you just get kind of skewed information. So I don't use those. They're really, it's more the type of question that's the issue with students anyway than the standard. But you can get down to what clusters students are doing well, but the standards reports are not that useful.
Right. Especially for the SAS.
Yeah.
So
that
the issue is that because I'm not in a specific district, I can't show you a specific district's data. So if you do have an assessment that has the standards attached to it, I can't go into a specific district and say this is and run it. So it's a little bit tricky. I'm kind of.
You could try the
Do you want me to try
one?
Yeah. Okay. So I am going to change this to current. Let's see what happens here. And we'll go to math. We're going to say 6th grade. See if we can show the assessments. I'm going to get rid of this. I don't want this. So I'll try this one and see if the standards report will show up. Make sure I still have that standards bar chart. Yep. So this particular, the reason why we knew we could choose that is this is a report that we know goes down to the standard level. So this is what that looks like, the bar chart. And this is how students, the proficiency level on each particular standard. I like the way that it shows it down here as well. So you can see it in the bar chart, and then it just sort of explains how the students did. You can see how many students took the assessment and then what the average proficiency level is for that particular standard. And I think, yeah. So yeah, this particular has just a few standards that are attached to it. And these are actually old standards, but
Yeah, they're the old
we'll go there.
LE standards.
So hopefully that shows a little bit of information there before I move on to the next report. So where we were going with this, with the assessment builder report, is I wanted to show you the item analysis by question. I already have the report that I wanted to run in here. I was going to do the mid-year math, so I don't need to change any of this information here, and I'm going to run the report here. Again, this is item analysis by question. And this is pretty interesting in that it shows you how students did on each question. So if we're looking here, this is, you know, the answers. You can see the correct answer was B. So the correct answer is B, and 70% of the students chose that. So it's a really quick visual for you to be able to kind of check out how students are doing. And then you may see something like this on question 4. 62% of the students chose B, which is the incorrect answer. And then you have about 11% of the students who chose the correct answer. So here's where you can drill in and you can say, all right, what question is this? So here's my question up here. And then you can see what the correct answer was. You can also then in here say, all right, well, who are my students that clicked? Who are my students that actually got this correct? So you can click to view and it lists all of your students who got the correct answer there. Or if you wanted to look at, this is just going to run the report again. Then I'll scroll down to that. If you wanted to choose another set and say, okay, well, who are all of my students that chose this particular answer, the incorrect answer here? So you can drill into each section here, which is really helpful. So it looks like the same thing happened on this particular question. And you can see that only 16% of the students chose the correct answer. And it looks like a large majority, almost 60%, chose answer C. So it's just interesting to be able to click here and say, well, what was answer C? You know, which shape has exactly one base? Well, here we go. So it gives you the information on the question and everything like that. So this is just a really good way to be able to view this information. And then you can also then, from here, I've got this particular assessment and I've got all the questions here, and I can switch the report. And then this is where I can look at the item analysis by student and then run the report again. Before I run the report, I was just realizing it was popping up. It's really interesting. If you just rest your cursor on the report here, it gives you just a little bit of a snippet of what that report is. When you get the email tomorrow on and get access to the folder, we've got a few documents in there, and one of them is the full, like what I showed you in the PowerPoint, what each report is and just a general information about each report. But it's kind of nice that it shows it in here as well. So I just wanted to point that out, that you can take a peek at them there. And then I'm just going to click Run Report. And so this is by student, same assessment, and then this is an item analysis by student. So you can see for this particular student that how they scored on each particular question. And then we know, this is just another way to look at it. If we're looking at this and we know that question 4 is one that was tricky for students, then you can click here and say, okay, here's all the students that didn't get that correct, but here are the students that did actually get that particular question correct as well. And again, if you wanted to see, if I change my options here and I say, show me this whole thing, it's going to be super wide. So sometimes it's good to just have it abbreviated and you just have the question number here too. So,
we have a question from somebody. A couple questions. So she'd like to look at some ELA assessments, but before you switch and do that, here's the other question. In the question analysis, are we able to use the questions as if they were released? Could we use them to teach?
Well, it would be, I don't know, Anne. I'm wondering if what assessment it is, what assessment it would be, right? It's not going to show up for New Hampshire SAS or anything like that. But depending on the assessment, I would say yes. But
yeah, she says SAS. So the SAS assessments, we don't have access to those questions. They don't send them the questions that students took on those tests. Right. But if you want to see SAS questions, you can do it on the SAS system. And if you don't know how to do that, tell me and we can show you at the end.
Now it would be different. Like we're talking summatives and interims. But if you're looking at New Hampshire SAS modular assessments, so anybody who's been looking at those are more like for math, it's like 10 or 12 questions, maybe 8 to 12. And for ELA, there's a few more where there's just different passages. Those don't get pushed automatically to Performance Plus, so you can request to have your modular assessments put in here, and those would go down to the question level and the standard level. But again, those are the modular assessments, and a lot of that information is not pushed automatically into Performance Plus. But again, you can request it.
Can you show the ELA, maybe what you did at the beginning with the item analysis for 3 years?
Okay, so I'm going to go through here. I'm going to take this, and then we're going to choose here. So we're looking at the item analysis they want by question. So it wouldn't be 3 years worth, right?
No, the item, not the item.
Choose the
ELA.
Yeah, so I can use the assessment scores. Yeah. So I'll go through the same thing for ELA. So I'm going to choose ELA here, and I'm going to choose my 5th grade because I know that I want to choose the interims first. So I'm going to go to the New Hampshire SAS interim, and then I'm going to choose these same students, 4th grade 2 years ago. And I'm going to choose I'm just going to choose, there's too many there for me, so I'm going to choose New Hampshire SAS. I'm going to show ELA. And then I'm going to do the same thing for 3rd grade. And again, I really need to make sure I change the date. I've messed that up before. And then I'm choosing the wrong students, so it's not apples to apples anymore. So now I want to change the, I'm going to go here. And so now I have my interns and I want to choose my overall score. I'm going to close these so I can see a little bit better. Just overall score for each of them. And then I am going to run my report. So now the reason why it says no students found is because I'm doing the wrong report here. I'm doing item analysis by student. So I need to go into this and I'm going to go to the assessment scores report and run it. Ann and I were talking about this earlier in that a lot of times you run a report, you realize that it's not what you wanted, and then you try again. So I'm going to go for overall score for third grade. And we're looking here. So some kids didn't take this in third grade. This is interesting. This particular, I must have something funny in my criteria for why my interns aren't showing up for fifth grade ELA. Let's check it and make sure that I have. Yeah, this do not use, you do use. We're not sure why in Performance Plus it says do not use.
Just in the test database.
Yeah. Let's just try it again. And we're going to say 2000. And these are our fifth grade. Interim. This might be, for some reason, yeah, interesting. I don't know why it's not showing up. Maybe these students didn't take the writing or something. But it is the same sort of process, and it would have the same information in there.
Yeah.
If you wanted to look at, let's just do, instead of the 3 years, we can just look at the, I'm going to take these two off. Oh, but it's not going to matter because I want to see.
Why don't you do a comparative report with showing the showing the sections? Is this the, don't go into interim, go to the SAS from 2019.
Yeah. Okay. 2018, 19.
18, 19, yeah.
And then they would be, probably doesn't even matter which grade, but so I'm going to show assessments here and choose this one. I'm going to get rid of the interim because I've got nothing. And then I can go into, I'm going to choose my year prior.
I would just don't do another one. Just open this one up and just look at the sections so you can compare the sections. So not like just open the clusters like RL, all of those.
Okay.
Because this is a really useful way to look at your summative, your SAS assessments results after they take them this year.
We're going to have a whole webinar on this. So you're getting a little preview.
Yeah.
Even though this is.
It runs.
If it runs. Here we are.
Oh, comparative report though. So can you?
Okay.
Well, that's interesting. But the comparative report too. So that's an assessment scores report, and you get each section.
You want achievement levels or standards?
Achievement levels.
Okay.
There we go. So on this one, you can see that there's really this is where it says RL, that's reading literature. The next one's reading literature. The next one's reading literature. Then it's reading informational text, etc. So in reading literature and in reading informational text, there's a section called key ideas and details, which is a cluster of standards. And you can see they did better with the blue and the green on the reading literature key ideas and details. Can you point to that? Than they did on the key ideas for reading informational texts.
Right. So this is key ideas and details reading literature here. And then this is key ideas and details for reading informational.
And this is a good way for teachers or teams of teachers to pick an area that they need to work on. Like look at the craft and structure, right? For reading literature. Mm-hmm. Almost 80% of them were answered those questions correctly.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then if you look at reading informational text, craft and literature, still pretty good.
Oh, pretty good. So, I mean, that's the strength in that grade and not of the students. I mean, obviously of the students, but I bet you if you look at the year before, that will also be the strength. And the year before, it will also be the strength, which means it's the strength of the teachers, not the kids. So that's also another way to look at it. 3 years of this kind of report is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And you can do more than one report. So what I can do here, if you're looking at, like if we wanted to say, all right, well, the students here, like where we have, like writing is always kind of the tricky one. But if we just wanted to look at key ideas and details for those, I could say, I'm going to go here and I am going to choose, I thought that here we go. And if I wanted to, I could say where those reading literature ones are, and I just wanted to look at key ideas and details for reading literature and reading informational for how students did in fourth grade. What I would want to do is I chose again this fourth grade one here, and I have the fourth grade one again. These are not the same students. These are just fourth grade over 2 different years. And I could do the same thing and just choose that key ideas and details for reading informational and key ideas and details for reading literature. And I can run the report there, and then you'll see what happens here. You can run it for all of those at the same time. It just gets really, it hurts my eyes to really kind of look at, oh, of course I kept conventions and all of that kind of in, but let's see. Let me go into my, I meant to take all of these out. Okay, try that again. All right, so you've got reading informational text here for your kids that took it in 2018, and this is about how they scored. Same thing for 2019. And then for reading literature, here's how they scored. It did looks like the next year they went down a little bit in that. So it could be sometimes your students there, but like what Anne is saying is it tends to be relatively consistent. It's a really good way to figure out where in general student strengths are and teacher strengths are really.
We got a comment that said, I'm loving looking at the comparison chart. And I said, I mean, to me, that's for the SAS information. Mm-hmm. It's the best to figure out what the strengths and weaknesses are of the instruction if you look over past years. Mm-hmm.
It'll be really interesting as well. Like I said, we're doing a webinar coming up in the next month or so. We just want more people to have taken the summatives before we offer it, but it is coming up. It's one of the ones coming up for Performance Plus is looking at this particular information and being able to now look at this year's summatives as well. Right now we only have interims, so it's not apples to apples. So any other questions or any other?
We don't have any questions, but if people want to stay and raise their hand, we can, because we've run out of time. Mm-hmm. So I think somebody did ask a question about questions, but using questions. So if you want to stay, we can show you how to get to the content library. Or if you want to stay and ask a reporting question specific for your district, please do, and we will unmute you. And Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everybody.
We'll get that information to you tomorrow. So if you want to raise your hand and get some information, or if I see that people are just hanging around, I'm going to assume you want to see the content library.
Okay.
You want to show
people hanging around. So yeah. We'll show the content library here.
If you go to content, it's the next one. Yeah, content library.
Yeah. So we're going to go right here to the content library. And this is where you're able to use specific criteria. So, I mean, we've got National Common Core standards. I would, and you usually keep that there, right?
If you wanted, if you wanted to do the next gen standards, they're probably in there too, but I haven't looked at those questions. So I wouldn't go in there. I just stay at national. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so if you're looking at, if somebody wants to either put in the chat or whatever, what grade level they want to look at, then I can focus in on that grade level and you can kind of see, or we can unmute you if you raise your hand. And I will
4th through 6th.
6, what was it?
4th through 6th. I'd pick 4th. Just
okay. 4th grade. And then it sounds like maybe, is this still the ELA person maybe?
Yep.
Okay. And then we have show
the standards. So that's coming up. Do you have any particular standards you want to look at? Or shall we pick some? Let's say we want to look at the reading literature. What was the one that was low? If you look on the right over here, it'll tell you how many questions for each standard.
Mm-hmm.
How about is there key ideas I don't know the ELA standards very well. And
well, let's see. So if we look at
how about
making connections or
how about one that shows up on the report that we got to see, like none of them say key ideas in detail. Oh, because it's a standard and the clusters are those. We'll just pick any of them. It doesn't matter.
So I'm going to go.
Pick that.
I'm going to pick this one. And then, so now I've chosen that.
Now, if you go all the way to the bottom before you hit search. So Heather hasn't used this part very much. So I may end up doing stuff. So if you say show advanced search criteria there, if you type in star, where it says unique code, star SAS star, or star Common Core star, because you're going to get 300 or let's leave it blank and just show the questions and show what happens. So you get all these questions. And
right. Yeah.
And you can, over on the right, it says, okay, so it says, this is the unique code. It's from Coventry, Coventry, Connecticut, I assume. I would rather take them from the SAS or from Park or something like that. Something that, Coventry, Connecticut, I could have written this question and you'd think it was perfect, but who knows? So do a control.
I'm gonna go back here.
Oh, no, I would do a command find. Go back to the questions.
Okay.
And all the way to the bottom, show the questions. No, don't even put it yet. And just scroll down until you see, I see Coventry, skip a bunch of pages. You can do a command find or command F or control F and just look for SAS, see if anything shows up.
Nothing.
Look for Park, PARCC. Actually, the CRES, see this one right here, CRES, that's a Connecticut state one, so that's probably a good one. The ELA, why don't we just pick a couple? So for ELA, it's a little different because they're associated with stories. So put a check mark on that question, the first one and the second one and the third one there.
Any of these here?
Just the check mark, A, B, the next one. Okay. Now scroll all the way to the bottom. So you would go through and pick questions that were good and then add selected questions. So these are the questions that you picked. And if you create these into, go down a little, print copy ready, print copy RTF ready. Hopefully this will work. I haven't done this in a while. There's the passage that goes with it, and scroll down. And there are the questions. You can print this and rearrange it. I mean, it's going to come in, it'll come into a Word document, and you can rearrange it however you want, so it looks a little nicer. But this is a good way to get questions, because there are thousands and thousands of questions out there. That makes sense? Yeah.
And then and then they would, this would be something where they would create an assessment framework if they wanted to end up putting this into.
It would automatically, if you're using questions from the content library, it will automatically create the framework for you.
I love it.
I know, so that's kind of cool. And then you can put the answers in here and keep them for eternity. Keep them on students' permanent records. So you can also call us if you have questions about that too, because I went very quickly on how you find questions that make sense, but
okay, I'm just going to close this part here and we're back.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
Don't see any hands. I still see some people hanging on though, but no more hands, no more questions. Guess not. You want to go back to the PowerPoint?
Sure. We have just a little bit left of the PowerPoint. We do have, so again, this was where we were wrap up in questions. We do have a part of our website for specifically for Performance Plus subscribers. So you would go to member login here, and then you have an email and password. And what this is allowing you to do once you log in is you are able to, you could register, if you're not in there, you can register as a new user. It's, again, you're a Performance Plus subscriber, so it's all good. And you're going to go to resources and discussions. And there's a lot of just past information in here that might be helpful for you. Other webinars that we've done, just general supplemental documents and all of that. So feel free to go to that. We also, in the workshops and webinars section for Performance Plus subscribers, these are the webinars that are coming up. We have another one of these reporting level 2. It's going to be pretty much the same webinar. Obviously, if we have different questions, it creates different discussion, but the shell and the sort of format is going to be the same. But those, the webinars that are talking about this year's New Hampshire SAS summative reports, and data is going to be June 1st and June 9th. So those are the specific Performance Plus ones. We have the other ones that are also looking just mostly at the Cambium reporting portal. Those are separate webinars. But we find that Performance Plus data is just that has that much more information in it than in the portal. So take a peek there. We also have other past webinars on our YouTube channel and on our website. And then you can look at those at any time. Here's our YouTube channel. You can go on to any of these social media platforms. We're on there. There's a couple tips and tricks videos that we have up there now. There's some good literature and some other general information that we have on each one of those. And then this is us. If you want to get in touch with us and you have any other additional questions or any thoughts, definitely reach out to us and email us, and we'll do what we can to be able to answer your questions. We do have, if you are somebody who hung on, I'm going to put in the chat section. We do have a quick survey. We're always looking to see how we can do better. So oops, I just sent that only to panelists, which I did the last time as well. So the attendees, you can see that Survey Monkey. If you have a few minutes, I would love to, Ann and I would love to hear what you thought of the workshop today. And we'll do what we can to make any sort of changes or additions. So we appreciate you coming. Tomorrow you will get that email with all the information that has your certificate in it, the PowerPoint that I showed, and then it'll show you, point you in the direction of where the video will be. And that's it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. And again, reach out if you need anything or have any questions.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.